For centuries, humanity lived with an unwavering certainty. The world, in all its complexity, was believed to be a finished masterpiece, created exactly as we saw it, perfect and unchangeable. The ultimate authority on life's origins wasn't a laboratory or a fossil, but the sacred texts of the Bible. Questioning this order was not just a scientific debate, it was a dangerous act, challenging the very fabric of society, morality, and power. In this world, science knelt before theology, and the idea of fixity, or creationism, reigned supreme. Every species was a distinct, divine thought, forever separate. But in 1809, into an England shaking with the gears of industrial and scientific revolution, a child named Charles Darwin was born. No one, least of all his family, could have guessed that this quiet, nature-loving boy would ignite a fire that would redefine humanity's place in the universe. His father envisioned a respectable career for him in the church, but young Charles felt a pull elsewhere towards the Beatles, the rocks, and the whispers of a radical idea from his own grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, who had already dared to write about the transformation of species. This seed of doubt was planted early. In 1831, that seed began to sprout. Darwin, just 22 years old, boarded the HMS Beagle for a 5-year voyage around the globe. This single journey would become the crucible where millennia of certainty were melted down. As the Beagle charted its course through South America, Patagonia, and the remote Galapagos Islands, Darwin wasn't just a passenger. He was an obsessive observer. He unearthed fossils of giant sloths and armadillos, creatures long extinct, yet uncannily similar to the smaller versions, still roaming the continent. Why this resemblance if they weren't related? On the Galapagos, he saw tortoises with shells uniquely shaped to fit the vegetation of each specific island. He collected finches whose beaks were so varied, so perfectly adapted to different food sources, that they seemed sculpted by an unseen hand. Each specimen, each observation, was a hammer blow against the dogma of a static creation. A new story was emerging, one of a far older, more dynamic, and interconnected natural history. Upon returning to England, Darwin didn't rush to announce his earth-shattering conclusions. He retreated into a self-imposed silence, spending the next 2 decades secretly filling notebooks with his radical theory. He sketched a tree of life, showing how all living things could have branched from a common ancestor. He meticulously developed the concept of natural selection, the simple yet profound idea that in the struggle for existence, individuals with favorable traits are more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass those traits on. Over immense spans of time, this pressure could lead to the divergence of new species. He understood the terrifying implication. If he was right, humanity was not a special divine creation set apart from the animal kingdom. We were just another branch on the tree of life, a distant cousin to every creature on Earth. Finally, in 1859, spurred by the work of fellow naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace, Darwin published On the Origin of Species. The impact was immediate and explosive. The book became a sensation, igniting fierce debates in lecture halls, newspapers, and pulpits across the world. Science, for the first time, offered a comprehensive explanation for life's diversity without invoking a divine creator. The reaction was polarized. Progressive thinkers were electrified. The clergy was outraged. The public was torn between fascination and horror. Darwin's bulldog, Thomas Huxley, fiercely defended the theory in public forums, most famously in the 1860 Oxford debate against Bishop Samuel Wilberforce. The battle lines were drawn. No scientific idea in history has provoked such a profound moral and spiritual conflict. The theory of evolution was a direct challenge to the literal interpretation of Genesis and the deeply held belief in humanity's special creation. Many feared that without God as the ultimate lawgiver, morality itself would crumble. Satirical cartoons lampooned Darwin, depicting him as an ape, mocking the idea that humans could be related to such creatures. For a vast portion of society, Darwin hadn't just explained life. He had destroyed the spiritual foundation of Western civilization. But the most dangerous chapter of this story was yet to come. Born from a grotesque distortion of Darwin's work, Darwin wrote about the natural world, but others twisted his ideas to justify human hierarchies. Philosopher Herbert Spencer coined the phrase, "survival of the fittest," applying it not to finches, but to people. This new ideology, social Darwinism, was eagerly adopted by the powerful. It became a scientific justification for colonial exploitation, ruthless economic competition, and the insidious rise of scientific racism. The laws of nature, they argued, proved that some human groups were inherently superior to others. Biology was hijacked to serve a political agenda, one Darwin himself never endorsed. In the early 20th century, this distortion reached its horrifying apex: eugenics, championed by Darwin's own cousin, Francis Galton. The eugenics movement sought to improve the human species through selective breeding. This wasn't just a fringe idea. It led to forced sterilization policies in the United States, Canada, and across Europe. Targeting those deemed unfit, the ideology found its most monstrous expression in Nazism, where a pseudoscientific obsession with racial purity was used to justify unspeakable atrocities and genocide. A theory about the origins of barnacles and pigeons had been twisted into a warrant for mass murder. So, was Darwin himself a racist? It's a complex question. He was a man of his Victorian era, and some of his private writings reflect the prevailing prejudices of his time. However, he was also a staunch abolitionist who was horrified by slavery. The crucial distinction is this: Darwin's personal limitations are entirely separate from the malicious hijacking of his scientific theory by later ideologues. Today, modern genetics has unequivocally proven that social Darwinism is a fallacy. The biological concept of race has no genetic basis. Human diversity is a beautiful, continuous spectrum, and the idea of one group being evolutionarily superior is scientific nonsense. More than 160 years later, evolution remains the bedrock of modern biology, confirmed by genetics, the fossil record, and countless other fields. The initial war between science and faith has also evolved. Many major religions have found ways to reconcile their spiritual beliefs with scientific discovery. Viewing evolution as the mechanism through which a divine process unfolds, the dialogue continues, now more nuanced and complex. Charles Darwin did not destroy religion. He destroyed our illusion of separateness. He gifted us a grander, more humbling, and more interconnected view of life. The conflict that followed was never truly about science versus faith. It was about our profound human struggle to accept change, especially when that change forces us to rethink who we are and where we come from. His legacy is not one of destruction, but of an expanded and ever-expanding understanding. If you found this journey through one of history's greatest ideas meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue to explore the epic battles of thought that shaped our world. Thanks for watching.